The shocking truth behind the brutal rise of the British Empire that haunts us today. Yorkshire, 1875. A chilling fog blanketed the moors, whispering secrets of a past shrouded in blood and betrayal. In the heart of this darkness, a single flickering candle struggled against the oppressive gloom like a heartbeat against a dying world. Families gathered around hearths, their eyes wide with tales of unspeakable horrors, tales of an empire that had grown fat on the misery of others. The echoes of cries for help rang in the air, lost stories of those who dared to stand against the tide. What led a humble fisherman to march against the relentless tide of British warships? What unseen curse bound the king to a fate filled with torment? Shadows danced in the corners of taverns where whispers of a ghost ship, the bloodied crown, sparked the curiosity of all who dared to listen. The stories twisted, became darker, of sailors driven mad by the sight of spectral hands, grasping desperately from the briny depths. The crowd would gasp, murmurs racing like wildfire, with fear hanging thick like smoke. On the outskirts of town, a gathering formed, eyes scanning the horizon for answers. Every frightened expression told a tale, shoulders tense, hands trembling. When a woman stepped forward, clutching a crumpled letter, hearts raced. Was this the final clue? The weight of 1,000 lives pressed upon her as she spoke of hidden treasures, cursed maps, and a plot that could topple even the mightiest empire. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But as the wind howled like a banshee, a deafening silence fell. Every eye turned to the horizon where dark clouds rolled in, foretelling a tempest far more terrifying than mere weather. What would happen when the fishermen's rebellion met the empire's fury? An adventure awaited, a treacherous path steeped in treason, and just as they leaned closer, breath hitching, the last detail slipped from the woman's lips. A betrayal so deep, it could rip apart the very fabric of loyalty. Who could they trust? It was only the beginning, and danger loomed like a predator in the night. The air crackled with tension, stifling every voice as they processed the weight of the woman's revelation. Each heartbeat pulsed in the eerie silence, drawing them closer to the edge of an abyss that felt all too real. Shadows loomed larger, as if conspiracies threaded between the haunting fog and the lingering gloom. Faces transformed, some pale with fear, others hard with determination. Who would dare betray us? A man in a weathered coat blurted out, startling everyone. His voice echoed across the gathering like the tolling of a bell. The woman's gaze darted around, searching for signs of trust and betrayal among the anxious crowd. It's not just one, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it crackled with urgency. The letter, it speaks of a network. Families tied not by blood, but by greed and ambition. They will use any means to protect their secret. Mutterings rose up, sharp as daggers. What the woman spoke of turned hearts against one another. Distrust grew like the fog swirling above the ground, shrouding intentions. A child suddenly let out a sharp cry, causing everyone to flinch as if an unseen monster had stirred in the dark. Fear spread amongst the onlookers, each pair of eyes betraying a flicker of anxiety. A flickering lantern swung above the gathering, casting distorted shadows of the townsfolk. The woman pressed the letter into the hands of an older man, weathered and wise. His fingers trembled as he unfolded the fragile parchment. This speaks of a curse, he murmured, shaking his head as if to dispel the very thought. We all thought it a mere folktale, surely it can't be true? I fear, old friend, she replied with urgency, that it is. This cursed map cannot just lead to treasure. It leads to answers that could ignite the flame of rebellion. Flames danced in her eyes as she spoke. For generations, men have fought for freedom against this empire. And yet, we still live under the shadow of their cruelty. A rumble of thunder echoed ominously, and the clouds seemed to swallow the last glimmers of daylight. A gale swept through, chilling the crowd to the bone, their bodies almost breaking under the weight of uncertainty. "We must make a choice," the woman continued, her intensity rising. "This is our chance. Shall we stand together, or succumb to the fear that has plagued us for too long?" As her words hung like a dagger in the night air, the people fell silent, contemplating what lay ahead. The burden of loyalty pressed heavily on each person. A young fisherman with fire in his eyes stepped forward. "If the maps lead to the source of our suffering, we must risk everything. What good is life under the heel of an empire?" Before anyone could respond, the sound of crashing waves mingled with the wail of the wind. A low moan rose from below the cliffs, a haunting reminder of the bloodied crown. It was as if the ship itself answered their call, beckoning them to the unknown. "Tonight, we'll set forth," the woman declared, voice soaring above the tumult. "Tonight we claim our fate or perish in the attempt." The words ignited the crowd, urging them forward, a swell of bodies surging toward an adventure steeped in danger and whispers of betrayal. They began to move, the promise of action spinning wild hopes against the stormy sky. But out there in the dark, gliding just beyond reach, was the renowned ghost ship and its sinister secrets. And as they stepped towards their destiny, the grating question loomed: who would truly survive the night? Was the risk worth the price they would pay? What awaited them on this perilous journey could change everything, or it could doom them all in ways they couldn't foresee. As the first few drops of rain began to fall, the group pressed forward, not knowing the terrible truths lurking just beyond the fog. The rain fell hard now, each drop like a drumbeat urging the crowd along. Fear and determination twisted together as the townsfolk pressed forward, toward the shadowy cliffs. The air smelled of salt and wet earth, the storm brewing above promising danger. The rain wrapped around them, soaking through their clothes, mingling with the sweat of anxiety. Hearts thumped wildly as they reached the rocky edge. The waves crashed below, fierce and unrelenting, their white froth clawing at the shore as if they wanted to tear the ground apart. They could barely see the outlines of the bloodied crown, a ghostly silhouette against the roiling sky. It loomed as a harbinger of their fate, the secrets it held heavier than the weight of water that dripped from their hair. "Stay close," the woman called, pulling the group together. Her eyes glittered with resolute fire, but fear flickered behind her bravado. "We have to be careful. If there are traitors among us, we must watch our backs, or they will watch us fall," muttered the old man, folding the now drenched letter back into his pocket. He felt the chill of the wind, the sense of betrayal creeping closer, and wondered if it would rob them of everything they held dear. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the ship just for a fleeting moment. There it was, the tattered sails, the creaking hull, the eerie shadow of the captainess figure standing at the bow. A shiver raced through the crowd, teeth chattering against the looming threat. The chant of an ancient curse echoed in their minds, but they pressed on, spurred by the woman's voice and the pull of destiny. With heads held high, they clambered down the slick stone stairs that spiraled toward the waiting vessel. Each step felt precarious, like intruding upon a sacred space, one where the dead might not welcome the living. The fisherman took point, bravely leading the way, but his heart fluttered with doubt. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, slipping through the throng with a practiced ease. "You shouldn't be here," hissed a voice low, but the urgency in the tone echoed louder than thunder. The group halted, a ripple of tension ending their resolute march. Their eyes darted to the newcomer, a look of horror sweeping across their faces like frostbite creeping into flesh. "Trust not just anyone," the stranger continued, desperation leaking through his words like water through a sieve. "Betrayal runs deep as blood, and those you thought allies may have swords behind their backs." "Who are you?" the woman demanded, her voice stern but quaking slightly at the revelation that spilled from the man. This was not the time for games or cryptic foretellings. "I was once one of them," he admitted, eyes darting to the shadows. "But I escaped. They know about the letter. They'll come for you, for all of you." His shout reverberated against the cliffside. The wind pounded even harder, almost as if in warning. A murmur erupted among the group, fear rising like a tide. The woman felt the weight of their gaze. Doubt crept into her chest, threatening to choke her resolve. If we press on, we must do so prepared. If there are traitors in our midst, they will show themselves, she said, and yet she felt the trembling notes of uncertainty. Suddenly, a series of screams erupted from the ship. Figures could be seen flailing in the dim light, shadows moving hungrily across the deck. Heart racing, she grabbed the fisherman's arm. We must go, now. As they rushed towards the ship, breathless with urgency, the promise of answers danced tantalizingly out of reach, though so did the specter of danger. What lies beyond the ship remains entwined with their fates, and the deeper they delve, the more perilous their journey becomes. But one question lingered. Among them, who was truly loyal, and who would betray them when the dark night revealed its true face? The ship loomed closer, the damp air thick with tension as they scrambled over the slick rocks and gripped anything they could find to steady themselves. The screams grew louder, sending chills down their spines. The fisherman's heart raced, every instinct telling him to turn back, but the group pressed on, driven by a need for answers, and the weight of the unknown hanging heavily over them as they reached the vessel. Illuminated sporadically by flashes of lightning, the scene on deck became clearer. A chaotic clash unfolded before their eyes. Shadows battled like phantoms, their movements filled with frantic energy, slashing, grappling, and failing against the dark tide. One figure, larger than the others, was thrust backward, crashing into a pile of barrels, splintering the evening's tension like a gunshot. What in the world? The woman whispered, her voice barely breaking through the cacophony. The sight was haunting. She turned back toward the stranger, her eyes ablaze. You said they'd come for us? Is this what you meant? Without waiting for a response, she climbed onto the ship, fear igniting a fire within her. The fisherman hesitated, glancing back at the gathering storm of wind and rain that seemed to converge on them, as if the very elements disapproved of their pursuit. He shoved those doubts aside, following her up the ramp. The others had no time to second-guess their loyalty. They followed. Once on the deck, the electric atmosphere wrapped around them like a cold shroud. A shout pierced the din, "Kill the traitor." It punctured through the chaos, and the mob separated, parting like water for the drowning man. Fear tightened the woman's chest as she ducked under a swinging blade, nearly losing her footing on the heaving deck. From where she crouched, she could see the captain, a foreboding figure swathed in shadows, steely gaze locked onto the stranger who had warned them. "You shouldn't have come back," the captain roared, his tattoos dancing like serpents over his brow. The fury in his voice rang out like an alarm, echoing through the chaos. "Please," the stranger cried out, arms raised in a desperate plea. "You don't know who I work for. Everything has changed. They're after you, too." The townsfolk, caught in the maelstrom of fear and loyalty, exchanged glances. The woman shook her head, realizing the truth was hidden like treasure within a storm. With each heartbeat, the decision grew clear: either turn their allegiance to the captain, who stood a twisted paragon of piracy, or trust the man who had risked everything to warn them of the shadows lurking behind the scenes. The fisherman caught her gaze, resolve hardening. "Stick together," he urged as another scream shrieked through the air, the chaos swelling around them like a monster trying to swallow them whole. Suddenly, a figure broke free from the fray with a bloodied blade, eyes wide with panic and anger. "The curse is real. It's coming for us," he shouted, before collapsing in a heap, blood staining the wooden deck. The crowd gasped. The woman staggered back, her heart racing. The storm raged on, churning between the power of the elements and the darkness of fractured loyalty among friends. She knew, deep down, that the revelations ahead could shatter them all. How deep does this betrayal run? She whispered to herself, as the air crackled with danger. Just as she was about to gather her thoughts, a shadow flickered behind her, the ominous feeling of someone watching her. She turned sharply, facing a cold smirk emerging from the throng. Who was this new player, and what secrets did they hold? The moment simmered with danger. The truth was lurking just beyond reach, and the storm had only just begun to break. The smirk widened as the figure stepped closer, emerging from the dimness like a ghost. A tattered coat hung from the steep shoulders. A flash of silver gleamed from a hidden pocket. The woman squinted against the harsh flashes of blinding light, adrenaline battling disbelief. Who was this shadow who dared to weave himself into their chaos? "Look at you all," he drawled, voice smooth yet jagged like broken glass. So eager to jump into a raging storm. Such brave souls. Or perhaps just foolish. "Get lost," the fisherman shouted, nostrils flaring in anger. He was all muscles and grit, ready to defend the woman beside him. "Don't you see?" The stranger's voice rang with manic delight. "This chaos is only the beginning. Something far worse lurks beneath the surface. It's here to claim you all." He gestured grandly to the chaos and failed discounting their fighting spirits. A pause hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as doubt twisted the faces around him. "What do you mean?" the woman asked, her voice firmer than she felt. "Old debts come due. Blood debts." His laughter mingled with the wind's howl, sending a chill along her spine. "They've found you. They're closer than you think." With each word, she sensed the undercurrents of fear swirling around the crew. Whispers erupted as townsfolk exchanged furtive glances, uncertainty flooding their features. The clamor of clashing steel intensified, cries punctured reality, but beneath it all lay an unsettling truth. As the chaotic battle continued, she fought against the oncoming tide of despair. "Enough!" shouted the captain, silencing the tumult. "You fool! Do you dare mock me while I fight for what is mine?" His voice thundered above the din, physically shaking them. "I mock nothing. I'm here to save you." The stranger's eyes gleamed in the shadows, a predator eyeing its prey. "But not without a price. You must trust me." A flurry of frantic movements pulled her attention back, only for the captain to thrust forward again, narrowly avoiding a swipe that sent sparks flying onto the deck. She ducked just in time, feeling the rush of air as metal cut through the atmosphere. "Trust?" she spat, heart pounding loud enough to drown her thoughts. "Do you know what trust has brought us here?" Her own voice felt distant, almost unfamiliar. "Trust is your only weapon." The stranger returned, leaping closer as many began to falter. "He'll take you to ruin if you let him." In the midst of the storm, the fisherman caught her eye, his resolve wavering. "We can't let emotions rule our fight," he urged with a deep breath, echoing the turmoil surrounding them. He stepped closer to her, desperation etched across his brow. Before she could respond, a fierce blow landed, a sickening crack filling the air. The figure who had shuddered with warnings fell to the deck, lifeless. The blood pooling around him glinted like oil, a stark warning of what was at stake. The realization slammed against her senses. "We have to move," she gasped, fear clawing at her throat. She locked her gaze first on the captain, then on the stranger who had died bearing the truth. With every heartbeat, every labored breath, a decision loomed overhead, thick and insistent. Should they fight with the captain, or did they owe their fate to the fallen one's ominous truths? In that charged moment, another figure broke free, darting toward the captain with a blade raised high, filled with desperate intent. "This is our only chance." The revelation was palpable. Blood would spill, but the choices they made could save or shatter them all. "What do we do?" The woman's voice quavered under the weight of destiny crashing down upon them. Just then, loud thunder erupted, its roar shattering the haunting silence as it cast shadows across the ship. The sky seemed to open its mouth, revealing the storm's sinister intent. Whatever awaited them next would change everything. But would they be ready? The clang of steel echoed fiercely, slicing through the thick tension as bodies collided in a frenetic dance of life and death. She felt the ground shake beneath her, the ship tilting dangerously as another wave crashed against the side. That booming thunder wasn't just from above, it came from within, a chaotic symphony of desperate survival. The captain's roar pierced the air again. "Fight! You want your lives? Then take them." He lunged, his massive frame a blur, aiming for the assailant with wild fury. But the man wasn't he alone. Shadows flickered all around, dark murmurs rising and crashing like restless tides. "Stay with me." The fisherman's grip tightened around her wrist, grounding her against the chaos. His eyes were wide with fear, yet flickered with determination. "We can't turn back now. It's either fight or die." A gasp escaped her, the weight of the moment crashing down like the storm overhead. The deck was painted in streaks of blood, each blot a reminder of the stakes at hand. She glimpsed the fallen stranger's lifeless eyes, pleading for action, demanding that someone heed his warning. "Then we trust each other." Her voice cracked, barely rising above the turmoil. "We can't let them win." "Exactly. Stick together," the fisherman shouted back, rallying those still on their feet. The crew had begun to gather, forming a thin line of resistance. The adrenaline worked like magic, binding them as one against the tide of attackers. "Cover your flanks," the captain barked. "Whatever comes next, we meet it head-on." With renewed resolve, she felt the heat of battle enveloping her. She grabbed a discarded sword that lay on the blood-slicked deck and raised it high, ready to join those fiercely fighting for their lives. But as the fray continued, eerie figures emerged from the corners of the battlefield. Cloaked in darkness, they closed in around them. The whispers grew louder, an unsettling chant echoing the very threat the stranger had mentioned. Death, blood, doom. Her heart raced. Who were these figures? Were they ghosts of those owed debt? Or had the storm conjured them from the depths of her darkest fears? Panic rose, but the fisherman's steady voice cut through. "This is our moment. Stand strong." They advanced, side by side, blades flashing, instincts ignited. The metaphorical storm raged inside her, but amidst the howling winds, clarity emerged. She would fight for every breath in her body, not just for herself, but for everyone standing beside her. But then, the shadows surged forth, a mass seemingly summoned from the depths of lost hope. A figure stepped forward, taller than the rest, eyes glimmering like smoldering coals. "You think you can escape your fate? You owe it, and it has come for you." The words slithered like venom into her ears. "What do you want?" she shouted, fear gripping her throat so tightly she struggled to breathe. "I want what was taken," the figure hissed, contempt laced in every syllable. "Your blood. Your life. It's a transaction that must be fulfilled." The world around her faded, a cold grip encompassing her mind. This was more than just a battle for survival. It was a reckoning, a sinister comfort between debtors and the damned. As she glanced at the captain and her allies, their faces echoed the very question swirling in her own heart. What sacrifice would be needed to break this ancient curse? Suddenly, the storm unleashed its fury, lightning flash illuminating the horizon. In that moment, clarity struck. She felt the ancient, chilling weight of the truth dawning upon her. But before she could voice it, the dark figure lunged, steel glinting with deadly intent. And in her heart, she knew whatever darkness awaited, only together could they face it. Would they stand united, or would they fracture under the weight of their past? The answer loomed like an ominous cloud, whispering the deadly promise of what was yet to come. The impact of the dark figure's lunge sent her reeling back. Heart hammering, she narrowly dodged the glinting blade, a rush of air barely grazing her cheek. Adrenaline kicked in, amplifying her senses. All around her, the battle raged on, fierce and relentless. She could hear the clash of metal, the grunts of struggle, and the desperate cries of her fellow crew members. "Move!" the fisherman shouted, pulling her back to her feet. He met the advancing shadows with fierce determination, swinging his weapon like a lifeline. The captain, locked in combat with another dark assailant, shouted, "We fight for each other. We fight for our memories." Memories, her mind flickered, with flashes of laughter, warmth, and love now juxtaposed with the blood-soaked chaos. But one memory stood tall above the rest. Her mother's voice, warning her about the looming dangers of debts unpaid and promises broken. "You can't escape what has been owed," she had said, But who exactly were they indebted to? As if sensing her thoughts, the figure chuckled darkly. You see, the world you think you know is built on transactions, child. Every joy, every moment of peace, it has a price. And tonight, the bill has come due. With a sudden surge of fury, she lunged forward. I want to be part of this madness. She swung her sword with every ounce of strength she possessed. The blade connected with the figure's arm, a brilliant spark illuminating the darkness between them. It was then that she noticed something strange. The shadows around the figure seemed to recoil, as if her hit had sown a seed of doubt in their ranks. Breathless, she shouted to her unwilling comrades. This isn't just a fight for life. It's about breaking the chains of our past. They fought back against the shadows, every thrust and swing becoming a statement against oppression. Hope flickered like a distant star, bold enough to pierce the encompassing darkness. But the dark figure, fuming with rage, recovered quickly. Foolish mortals, you cannot defy your fate. He swung wildly, but a sudden bolt of lightning split the heavens, illuminating the battleground with a blinding flash, and in that moment, she saw them, the fallen crew members from years past, faces twisted in anguish, silently crying out. Were they also bound by this curse? Could their debts ever be repaid? The pained realization hit her like a ton of bricks. We've been living under this curse without knowing. Don't think, just fight, snapped the fisherman, narrowly avoiding a blade. The closer the shadows drew, the thicker the darkness felt. Every heartbeat reverberated like war drums, amplifying her trepidation. What if we lose? She pondered, glancing back at the captain fiercely battling onwards. Then a voice, soft yet powerful, reached her. Together, remember we're stronger together. The captain's words ignited her resolve, and suddenly, she wasn't afraid. We will end this tonight, she shouted, raising her blade high. A cacophony erupted, filled with the clash of weapons and raw valor. The crew moved as one entity, unyielding and fierce as a storm. But the dark figure wasn't finished. He called out, if you wish to end this madness, you must confront the truth of your past. Fear coiled tightly in her chest. What truth? What must they face? The air grew electric, the storm at its peak. All around, the shadows began to swirl and shift, coalescing into something more solid, more menacing. Prepare yourselves. She felt the charged anticipation tight in her muscles as an unbearable tension hung in the air. This was the moment everything could change, for better or worse. But in that moment of unity, a chilling voice hissed from the swirling shadows. Let us see if you can handle the weight of your sins. Would the truth empower them, or would it unleash a darkness worse than they had ever known? The shadows twisted and churned, forming grotesque shapes that loomed above them. She felt the electricity in the air, a crackling hunger for resolution that both terrified and thrilled her. Every nerve in her body screamed to flee, but something deeper urged her to stay and fight. What truth? She cried out, trying to pierce through the darkness. What do you expect us to confront? The dark figure responded, his laughter echoing like a death knell. You wear your scars as badges of honor, yet you hide from the secrets that forged them. Face your past. Only then can you hope to break the cycle. As if on cue, the shifting shadows solidified into images of betrayal, loss, and guilt. Her heart raced as she recognized the faces twisting in agony, not only those of her fallen comrades but her own memories reflected back. Her mother's disappointed gaze, the family arguments, the moments of cowardice that had haunted her dreams. Every fragment of her past clawed at her, pulling her deeper into despair. Fight, not just against them but against the truth, yelled the fisherman, desperation visible in his eyes. Don't let them win. The captain, too, stood steadfast, his sword gleaming against the encroaching darkness. We'll take this weight together. Remember, we are not what we were, but what we choose to become. At that moment, a furious wind blasted through the chaos, momentarily clearing the air. She caught sight of the crew, battered yet defiant. There was a fire in their eyes, a shared determination that ignited within her. Together, she shouted, raising her sword high once more. We're not afraid of what lies behind. We will own our sins. With that, they surged forward as one, breaking through the oppressive tide of shadows. Each blow fought against not just the dark figures, but against the very chains that had held them captive for too long. She felt the weight of 1,000 generations lift, replaced by the pure strength of unity that I in the midst of combat. The dark figure's laughter morphed into a screech of rage. You think facing your sins will save you? You're merely delaying the inevitable. The realization struck her hard. This was not just a fight for survival but a confrontation with the very essence of their pain. Every swing, every clash, it echoed with the reckoning of truths long buried. But before she could ponder further, a blinding flash erupted, one that felt both malevolent and godly. It enveloped them, the brilliance almost painful. In that moment of searing light, she glimpsed fleeting images, sacrifices made, dreams shattered, and threads of fate intertwining. Suddenly, silence descended, a suffocating weight that pressed against her chest. All at once, the battlefield transformed. The dark figures stood frozen, and their faces revealed something unexpected: fear. That fear ignited something raw inside her. "Face it," she shouted into the void, propelled by an emotion greater than vengeance. "You have no hold over us anymore." But just as victory seemed within grasp, the ground quaked, and shadows erupted from beneath. "You know nothing of my power," the dark figure roared, now surrounded by a swirling tempest of dark energy. The battle raged on, but she sensed a shift. The darkness was faltering, even if just slightly. That flicker of hope spurred her onward. "Together, we break this curse." Yet, as they pressed forward, the figure's voice echoed ominously through the chaos. "You will learn every sin has its price." Her heart froze. What kind of price was he talking about? The answer loomed closer, a haunting question suspended in the air. Would they finally crush the darkness? Or would they open a door to horrors yet unknown, echoing in the shadows? The ground trembled beneath their feet as she felt the pulse of chaos around her. The figure loomed, his dark energy swirling like a relentless storm. She could taste the fear thick in the air, its metallic flavor a constant reminder of what was at stake. Each heartbeat drummed in her ears, rising and falling with the violence of their struggle. "Stay focused," she urged, glancing at the captain and the fisherman. They nodded, determination etched on their faces, yet doubt flickered in their eyes. They could feel that something was coming, something that would change everything. The shadows began to writhe and shift, coiling like snakes ready to strike. "You're fighting a losing battle." The dark figure's voice was cold, empty. "Every blow you strike only strengthens my grip." With a rallying cry, she pushed against the suffocating despair. "No more. We've spent too long in the dark." Suddenly, a pulse of white-hot light erupted from her sword. It cut through the darkness like a knife, illuminating the twisted shapes around them. For a brief moment, she could see the figures that had haunted her nightmares, their tortured expressions twisted in despair. But now, she noticed something else. They weren't just lost souls, they were the echoes of her own past, reflections of the choices she had made. "Look," she shouted, pointing to the shadows. "They're not just enemies. They're part of us." The fisherman's voice trembled as he took a step closer. "Can we truly set ourselves free from what we've done?" "Only if we face it," she replied, the fire inside her igniting again. She realized this was not only a battle outside but a fierce internal struggle. The dark figure laughed, but this time there was a hitch of uncertainty in it. "Those sins are far more than memories. They are chains that bind you. You can't break free." Her heart pounded, the weight of the challenge settling over her. She remembered the pain of her past, the choices she had made, the people she had hurt. She looked at her crew, finally understanding. We must acknowledge them, not hide. Only by accepting our past can we weave a new future. With newfound resolve, she turned to the captain and fisherman. "Together, we must embrace our scars." As if responding to her declaration, the shadows surged forward. But this time, instead of fear, she felt a strange power. Each step they took toward the darkness felt heavier, but as they gathered in unity, their individual burdens began to intertwine, forming an unbreakable tapestry of strength. Now, she commanded, raising her sword high, we confront this. For every sin, let us reclaim our power. The ground erupted with energy as they struck the dark figures, and for every blow landed, light pierced through the shadows. Screams of agony filled the air, resonating like a grisly symphony. Still, the figure stood defiant, shadows swirling ferociously. You believe unity can save you? You're merely awakening the beast, and it will not hold back. A shiver ran down her spine. The tension escalated, their confidence battling against the dread pouring out from the figure. What does he mean? She whispered, glancing at her comrades. Doubt crept in, but she forced it down. We can't let fear control us. Just as they prepared for another rallying blow, the earth trembled anew, and something massive stirred below, a darkness deeper than any of them had known. Remember, she shouted, her words mingling with the roiling energy around them. We are not defined by our past if we choose to rise. Stand firm. But as shadows coiled under their feet, a new horror began to awaken, promising to unleash a chaos far beyond their imagination. What would emerge when the darkness finally broke free? The question hung in the air, raw and terrifying. The clash of steel echoed across the chaos, a relentless symphony of survival. The shadows writhed and hissed, but the unity forged in their desperation became a driving force. The fisherman held his ground, his muscles taut, eyes narrowed against the swirling darkness. The woman felt that familiar warmth of courage building within. No longer did she feel small or unworthy. She was a force to be reckoned with. Together, she shouted, raising her sword high to rally the remaining crew. Each shout lingered in the air, igniting something primal. The shadows recoiled, as if her voice illuminated the very darkness that sought to smother them. They pressed forward, swinging their blades at the silhouettes that slithered closer, their forms distortions of pain and punishment. With every strike, they felt the pulse of ancient weight growing weaker. Faces from her past fell upon her vision, reminders of fear and loss but also of love and laughter. She could hear her mother's voice urging her to reclaim her power and not let fear choose her fate. The dark figure that loomed above, his laughter hollow and cracked, was no longer intimidating. He was simply terrified of what they could become when united. You think you've found strength? He hissed, but the desperation in his voice was undeniable. Yes, she declared, her anger fused with hope. We are stronger than our shadows. The wind howled like a tempest, uprooting tables and barrels scattered on deck, revealing ancient carvings once hidden beneath layers of grime. They spoke of bonds broken by betrayal throughout time, inked in the blood of ancestors long lost. The curse had lived in these very moments, manifesting through pain when they turned against each other in a sudden rush of energy. The shadows surged forward, a tidal wave of darkness determined to swallow them whole. But as they clashed with the crew, the woman felt the power flowing through her, a shared electricity from her comrades, igniting hearts and brightening the dim deck. This ends tonight. As the crew fought, memories of betrayal twisted into strengths, their fears gave way to the burning flames of resilience. She glanced sideways at the fisherman, whose determination steadied her pulse like a metronome. He met her gaze, and in that moment, they shared an unspoken vow. They would not falter. The shadows roared, shrieking a terrifying wail as bolts of lightning illuminated their grotesque forms. Each flash of light unveiled the truth. Not every shadow belonged to an enemy. Some were the echoes of their own past pain. Face it, she screamed, as they struck towards the swirling darkness. We take back our lives, past, present, and future. Clenching her jaw, she lunged forward into the heart of the storm, her blade catching the flickers of prey-like eyes. The air reverberated with a question: what price must they finally pay to reclaim their destiny? And then it happened. A blinding explosion of light enveloped the battlefield. The figure, once so imposing, lost its form in the brilliance, screams morphing into the wind. All at once, the shadows lifted, dissipating like mist at dawn. The weight of their debt felt lighter, the curse shattering under the intensity of their newfound unity as the light softened. She breathed in the sweet air of freedom, and even the sky seemed to exhale the last vestiges of storm. The crew stood together battered and weary but alive. The bloodied deck became a sanctuary of a deeper bond forged through hardship, echoes of laughter replacing the cries of chaos. The captain raised his sword high, a symbol of their shared victory. We claimed our fate together. This is not the end, but a beginning. Cheers erupted into the stillness. They embraced each other, faces streaked with rain and blood, the triumph radiating among them. One by one, they turned towards the woman, their hearts and minds forever changed by what they had endured in that moment. She knew. The echoes of despair would never fully disappear, but neither would the strength gained from rising against the tide. They had learned that trust is not given lightly but earned through struggle and survival. They would carry forth the stories that bound them, stories of bravery too loud to ever fade. That as they descended from the ship, the weight of the night lingered, reminding them of battles fought and hands that had been held. Gratitude swelled within them, and from that shared experience, a community began. But even as they stepped into the dawn of a new chapter, a flicker of caution danced within her heart. The past had whispered warnings. Wouldn't it continue to echo even louder in the silence of safety? This victory, bold and bright, also signaled the beginning of something else. Tonight, we rise together, she echoed, knowing shadow was always lurking, but they had learned to face it. They transformed their scars into symbols of strength. The woman smiled at her comrades and felt their shared purpose ignite. The world would remember them now. This is your moment. Don't wait another second to subscribe immediately to the channel. You need to be here for the next tale that will drop jaw and hearts. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let the world know you're part of this legendary community. Flood the comments with how this saga impacted you. Let us share theories, feelings, everything. But most of all, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this stunning conclusion. Together, we can keep the story alive.